Hello everyone, this is part 70 of What If Naruto Meets the Nine Tails Early, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Sunagakur. Well, what is it, Gaara? Kankuro stood before his brother in the cage's office. Temari had recently returned from her mission in Konoha and had somehow managed to bring company with her, a messenger from Kumogakur by the name of Samui. The Raikage has called a summit of the 5 cages, replied Gaara. This shocked Kankuro. It's been over a decade since the last summit. Why now? Asked Kankuro as Gaara looked up at his brother. The last time a summit was held was right after the Third World War. For one to be called now. It seems the Raikage mentioned that in his summons, said Gaara. Although, not directly. It's about Akatsuki, isn't it? Guessed Temari, getting a nod from Gaara. So, the rumor going around Konoha was true. For a village to call on others to help address their problem, commented Chio, who was present in the office as one of Gaara's advisors on this matter. To think the Raikage of all people would stoop to such levels. Chio Basama, even you have to admit that the threat of Akatsuki is too much for one village to handle. They managed to infiltrate ours and Gaara from right under our nose before, argued Kankuro. This isn't just one village's problem. No, Kankuro, Chio-sama is correct, replied Gaara. The Raikage is particularly stubborn. For him to call a summit regarding the threat of Akatsuki, something must have happened. I managed to get some information while I was in Konoha, said Temari. Rumor has it that Akatsuki succeeded in capturing the Nibi from Kumo. I see, said Gaara. But I don't see how that could be possible because the Nibi's Jinchuriki, Yugito-ni, was present and alive in Konoha, replied Temari. She arrived the day before I left while accompanied by the Raikage and KB, the Jinchuriki of the Hachibi. They were escorted by a group of Konoha shinobi, including Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto, said Gaara to no one in particular. What did you do this time? Kankuro picked up the summons and read it to himself, his eyes widening in shock. What? Does the Raikage think we're stupid or something? This caused Temari to raise an eyebrow at her brother. Why would he request all of the Jinchuriki to attend as well? All of the Jinchuriki in one spot is just asking for trouble. Not only is it a perfect target for Akatsuki, but the Raikage doesn't exactly have the cleanest record for not trying to steal other villages' powers. And let me guess, he wants the summit held in the Land of Iron. Kankuro was confused. He was just about to bet on the summit being held in Kumogakur. The Land of Iron, they're a neutral nation if I'm correct, reflected Chio. Why would the Raikage choose to hold it there? Asked Kankuro. Doesn't the Land of Iron not have any shinobi? The Jinchuriki would be sitting ducks for Akatsuki there. No, rebutted Chio. The Land of Iron's no pushover. There's a reason they haven't been taken over by enemy nations despite not having shinobi. The samurai of the Land of Iron are exceptionally strong and can go toe-to-toe with even the 5 great nations. Unlike your father and his silly alliances, they value their own strength. Very well, said Gaara. Kankuro, please inform the messenger that Suna will be present. What? Are you sure, Gaara? This has to be some sort of trap, argued Kankuro. If it wasn't for the fact that the summit is being held in the Land of Iron, then I would agree, replied Gaara. But what makes the Land of Iron special? It's not like they're our allies, argued Kankuro. They are more our allies than our enemies, said Gaara. Wait, I know what you're referring to, said Temari, earning a look of confusion from Kankuro. That's right, you were still in the hospital when Naruto was here, Temari said to her puppet-using brother. Naruto told us a story about his journey with Jiraiya-sama. Apparently, there's a family of Uzumakis living in the Land of Iron. I still don't see how that would mean anything, said Chio. I wouldn't, if it wasn't for the fact that the Uzumakis were the wife and family of Mifune-sama himself, said Temari. And Naruto. It sounded like they were rather close, said Gaara. In the event of an incident regarding Kumogakur, the Land of Iron is more likely to ally with Uzumaki Naruto and Konoha, despite being a neutral nation. Awagakur. Gramps? Asked Kuretsuki. The Tsuchikage, Onoki, had just received the Raikage's request to convene for a summit of the 5 kages in the Land of Iron. However, the one thing that caught his attention was the request for the Jinchuriki to attend. His granddaughter, Kuretsuki, couldn't help but worry as a look found its way into Onoki's old eyes. So, this means there's a chance that Namika's brat will be there as well, said Onoki. Kuretsuki, go fetch Roshi for me, will you? The younger Jonan hesitated for a moment before setting off to fulfill her grandfather's request. What are you thinking, Gramps? It didn't take too long for Kuretsuki to find Roshi and escort him to her grandfather's office. Roshi, what are your thoughts on the Namika's brat? He came my best friend, replied Roshi. And he's a major threat to Iwagako's power. Perhaps there might be an opportunity to revenge Han, said Onoki. I'll do anything for the glory of Iwa, especially if it means I can avenge Han, said Roshi. That's good to hear, Roshi, said Onoki. You've always been one of my go-to shinobi due to your love of the village. A knock was heard on the Tsuchikage's office door and the old man signaled for whoever it was to enter. You're, gasped Roshi. It's been a long time, Daichi, said Onoki. Have you finally gotten over your son's betrayal? Konohagakure, Tsunade-sama, are you really going to agree to the Raikage's request to bring Naruto and Fu? Asked Shizune. Tsunade sighed. Even she wasn't sure what she would do. Even she had to admit the Raikage had some balls for requesting all the Jinchuriki to appear. She knew his reasoning, to get an accurate count on which Jinchuriki weren't in Akatsuki's hand. Also, she had a feeling KB's tendency to go out on his own had something to do with it. If B was present, then it could keep an eye on his brother. Suna was obviously going to send their Jinchuriki considering Gaara was also the Kazekage. As for Iwa and Kiri, she honestly had no idea. The Hokage knew how Naruto was when it came to the other Jinchuriki. If Naruto were in the dark, then perhaps she could leave without worrying about him tailing her, but that was not the case as the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki knew about the summit. Naruto would come regardless of what she said. As for Fu, the last thing she wanted to do was leave her alone in the village with Danzo. She had hoped the Aberrane would keep the secret close, but it was obvious based on her conversation with the elders a few months ago that there was a mole and Danzo was keeping a close eye on Fu. Could she leave Fu alone in the village? No, she would have to come to her or else she risked Danzo swaying Fu under his control. Yes, I do, resolved Tsunade, causing Shizune to let out a sigh. You and I both know Danzo's looking for the right time to make his move on either of them. But what could Danzo do? Asked Shizune. And why do you put up with him if he's just causing you so many problems? It was true, Tsunade could order her Anbuta Danzo and make it look like an accident, but there was the issue of route. She figured Danzo was the type of man to have some sort of contingency plan in case of his death or disappearance and she didn't want to risk a Rouge militant group causing trouble in Konoha. And then, there was the role that Danzo's route played, taking Konoha's dirty missions. She'd be lying if she wasn't aware that there were some missions Konoha had to take, but couldn't at the same time. She was working on phasing Danzo's involvement in Konoha's affairs out, but the old Warhawk had been putting up a strong resistance to her efforts. The morning of the Raikage's departure was interesting to say the least. The previous night, KB held an impromptu concert in Senju Park, hoping to spread the joys and beats of Enka beyond the walls of Kumogakure. While B thought the concert was a success, that didn't mean Konoha shared the same taste in music as him. While there were the very few who actually liked B's K beats, the majority of the populace spent most of the concert searching for rotten fruit. Thankfully for everyone's sanity, the concert was short-lived as a guest made his appearance on stage in a fashion that would have made a certain bushy-browed Jonan proud. Flashback. This town sure knows how to get down to my K beats. Oh, yeah, said B as he just finished his second song, a new record for his foreign concerts. Most of the crowd was silent for a moment, trying to figure out what it was exactly that was raping their eardrums. There were even some shopkeepers who figured they'd take advantage of this and clear out the old fruit from their inventory. Now Konoha, brace yourself for my newest hit single, Bakayaro Konayaro, announced B. Drop kick. Yeah, time to let those kicks drop, huh? A massive crash demolished the makeshift stage and as the clouds of dust cleared, B was buried underneath the rubble, the one and only Raikage standing on top. B. I told you to behave, shouted the Raikage. Needless to say, The Raikage earned the first round of applause for the night. End flashback. Early the next morning, the Raikage, Yugito ni, and Abattoir departed back for Kumogakur while Omoi, Samui, and Karui were sent to deliver messages to Kiragakur, Sunagakur, and Awagakur respectively regarding the upcoming Cage Summit. Later that day, being stuck in the village sucks, groaned Naruto. Barkan won't even let me go to Dad's training ground. And I think I almost had a way to transfer Kurama's conscience into a clone too. But I can't just go playing around with Kyuubi chakra in the village. You're telling me. And I was looking away from getting out of this ramen-infested seal, commented Kurama. And what's wrong with that? Need I even go there? Groaned the Kyuubi, giving Naruto a bit of a laugh. Still, Naruto had used this time as a perfect opportunity to help Karen move into an apartment. She had been taking over Naruto's apartment for the few days she was in the village and not in the hands of the interrogation department. While living with an actual family member was a nice change, he wanted his bed back after realizing the couch wasn't as comfortable as he remembered. Thankfully, the apartment just next door was available and Naruto now found himself, Karen, and a few of his clones, carrying some basic furniture through the streets. This should hold her long enough for them to save up and purchase the land required to build a clan compound. While Karen was arranging her apartment how she wanted, Naruto returned to his own and grabbed the archive scroll from Azuchiogakur before taking off for the Hokage's tower. Tsunade had offered him a storage vault where he could keep the archives until he was able to establish a clan library, and the Hokage was also interested in getting her hands on all the medical scrolls that came from Azu. Unfortunately for Naruto, he got a little caught up with sorting through the archives and lost track of time, exiting the tower late in the afternoon and coming face to face with an impatient Karen. You said you would show me some of the clan techniques after I finished up with the apartment, scolded Karen. Sorry, Karen-nichan, replied Naruto. I guess it didn't take you that long to get situated if you just got here. Just got here. I've been waiting outside for 3 hours, shouted Karen. You promised me you'd teach me how to use my sword. Or maybe you'll just go ask Sasuke-kun. TSK, like Sasuke could teach you the proper way to hack someone's limbs off, said Sugetsu, appearing directly behind the female Uzumaki, startling her and causing her to unleash her built-up temper upon the young Hozuki as she punched Sugetsu hard in the head, causing it to splatter. Naruto freaked out at this, and Kurama couldn't help but panic as the memories of a certain Uzumaki woman from his past came back to haunt him. However, Sugetsu's body just stood there as his head miraculously reappeared, causing Naruto to freak out even more. That's the Hozuki's hydrification bloodline, commented Zabuza as he appeared behind Naruto. As annoying as it is, it's an incredibly useful bloodline that makes it difficult to K him. What do you say, Gaki? Care to show these amateurs how a true swordsman wields a blade? As they relocated to a nearby training ground, Naruto and Zabuza had a friendly spar with one another, with Karen watching, trying to take in as much about the fighting style her clan was renowned for, while Sugetsu just scoffed, wishing that the blade Zabuza wielded was his own. I'll admit, Gaki, you wield that blade with skill. But it's just weird seeing a katana-style blade wielded with one hand most of the time, said Zabuza, a grin appearing underneath his bandage mask. The Uzumaki Kenjutsu style certainly is unique in that sense. What exactly does he mean by that, Nisan? Called out Karen. While our ancestors were mainly water chakra users, there was also a strong presence of wind chakra within them too. Mifune-sensei said this wind chakra made it so their blades would see easily, explained Naruto. They could wield their swords one-handed because they didn't need the extra strength to see. I think I'm starting to like these Uzumakis a little better, grinned Sugetsu, before turning to Karen. Well, most of them anyways. No one asked you. Naruto chuckled a little before sheathing his sword and pulling out a pair of his tri-prong knives, holding each of them in a reverse grip. Huh, I almost forgot you had those, mused Zabuza. Yeah, I've found myself using my sword more, but I actually still like using these, especially when I need to get right up in someone's face, said Naruto. Why would you say perfectly fine sword for those puny things? Shrugged Sugetsu. Will you stop it already? Nisan knows what he's doing, shouted Karen. But yeah, what makes those better in close combat? It was Zabuza who spoke up, slightly irritated by Sugetsu's ignorance in weapon styles. He would give the girl more leeway for now as she was still rather inexperienced when it came to weapons. Sugetsu on the other hand should have learned this stuff a while ago. Swords like Blondie's katana or my Kubakiribocho require a little distance between you and your opponent to set up for an attack. Those knives are much smaller and agile, better for when you can't put a little distance between your opponent. This should have been something you learned the day you entered the 7 Swordsman recruitment program. Care to give them a demonstration? Naruto nodded as Zabuza made half a dozen water clones and unleashed them upon Naruto, who went to work dispatching them with the knives. Given the smaller size of the blade, he found it easier to slip in and out of the clone's guards and strike. Repeating the demonstration with the katana, it was obvious taking on so many foes was more difficult with a less agile blade, until he was down to just 1 or 2 clones, before Zabuza spoke again. Blondie's knives are better suited for a battle against multiple opponents, whereas the sword is best for a single opponent. Hyuga Compound. As Neji entered the Hyuga compound following a short mission with his team, a scream yelled through the compound originating from the clan hall. Upon hearing this, Neji saw a fellow Hyuga that he knew as Hyuga Satoko rush towards the building. He was fairly certain that he knew what was going on, the elders. As Neji rushed over towards the clan hall, he saw Satoko on the ground next to her daughter, a young genin by the name of Sachiko, a member of the Hyuga branch family under the effects of the seal, being cast by the elder Aro. "Please Aro-sama, please forgive my daughter," begged Satoko as her daughter cried out in pain. "Your daughter was witnessed performing non-approved techniques earlier," commented Aro. "I believe I've made it very clear in the past that such techniques were beneath the clan. But Aro-sama, she was just trying to prepare for the Chunin exams that will be coming to Konoha in a few months," said Satoko. "She wanted to make sure she was prepared so she could represent her clan with honor." Aro simply replied by turning the seal towards the mother as well, and now there were 2 screaming branch members on the floor. It was then that a lavender blur came rushing past Neji, positioning herself between Aro and the 2 Hyuga women. With a quick flip of her hand, Hinata knocked Aro's seal out of position, cancelling the pain. This wasn't the first time Hinata had gotten between the elders and their attempts to use the seal to subjugate the branch members, and it most certainly wouldn't be the last. The Hyuga woman had gained quite a reputation amongst the branch members as a sort of savior. Thanks to the elders' greed, she could oppose them without any direct ramifications, and she would do just that to protect her family. Aro growled at Hinata and she returned a resolved glare. Reeling his hand back as the only one in the clan truly immune to the caged bird seal just stood there, willing to take his outlash so long as she remained there to prevent him from using the seal to torment 2 members of her clan and family, Aro lashed out. Hinata braced herself for the impact of Aro's palm against her face, but the impact never came as a hand reached out from behind her and grabbed Aro's wrist. Neji had finally had enough. Out of all the elders, Aro was the most liberal when it came to using the seal. So many of his fellow clansmen suffering at the elder's arrogant mindset. Was he ready to take on Aro or his son, Kenjo, in battle? The answer to that question was irrelevant, as he was in no way, shape, or form going to allow harm to come to Hinata-sama. Aro looked up to see the onlooking Neji. "And what do you want?" gritted Aro. "I've stood by long enough, Aro," Neji declared. "I'm invoking the clan's right of challenge." The eyes on all 3 Hyuga women widened. Hinata knew this day was going to come eventually, but Satoko and Sachiko. Neji Nisan. "So, this is what you want, eh? I'll give you 1 chance. Apologize now, get on your hands, beg, and I may overlook this act of insubordination," threatened Aro. "No," rejected Neji. "For too long, the clan has suffered under your guidance. Through your actions, you've weakened the clan. It's not the clan's interests you have in mind, it's your own." Aro growled at the Hyuga prodigy, ready to activate the seal on Neji's forehead for his insubordination. "Aro, enough," called out Hiashi as he entered the clan hall to investigate. "You know the clan laws." "Very well," relented Aro. "Seeing as the Hokage is leaving the village on official business, we will hold the challenge sometime when she returns so that she can be present to officiate it, as clan laws state." With that, Aro stepped out of the hall while sending Hiashi a glare. The clan head and elders had butted heads for too long. Perhaps watching his nephew suffer would put the clan head in his place. "Are you sure you're ready?" Hiashi asked his nephew. Whether or not I am, I've had enough of watching Aro subjugate the rest of the clan like this. Not to mention, I won't allow him to bring harm to Hinata-sama, resolved Neji. Then you are, thought Hiashi. Hisashi, are you watching? Later that night, Naruto lay in his bed, his attention drawn to his dad's kunai. It had been a while since he'd actually used these in combat, and Zabuza was right about them being better suited for close combat against multiple opponents, whereas the katana was best if he had to switch to a sort of mid-ranged fighting mode or he was fighting just a single opponent. Naruto's eyes drifted down the knife, towards the seal on the kunai. During their journey, Jiraiya admitted to not having the two tri-pronged kunai he gave him made, but rather they were the last of Minato's stock. They didn't have the marker seal, and Jiraiya informed him that the Sandaime had all of Minato's kunai destroyed. The only ones that had remained were the two unmarked ones Jiraiya had given him, the blade Kakashi kept as a memento of his late sensei, and the unmarked Hiraishin kunai Tenten's father had on display at his shop. At least, that was until this Hiraishin kunai appeared out of the scroll left for him by his parents. He really hadn't had a chance to think on it much lately with the past missions and Akatsuki, but now that he was temporarily confined to the village, he started to wonder. Had his dad left him this kunai for a reason? He had already used the seal copying technique on the seal, and while it produced a larger matrix than what was visible on the kunai, the seal seemed like it was missing something. It was only part of a seal. There had to be more to it, but where? Perhaps it was time he started working on it, bringing back the very jutsu his dad was known for. The only question was where to start. Hokage's office, a few days later. Momoiki Zabuza had been called to the Hokage's office to discuss something regarding his future with the village. Needless to say, the former demon of the mist couldn't help but sweat a little. He had only tried to escape the village twice in the past month and was hoping the Hokage wouldn't s him of his rank, or worse. Momoiki Zabuza, do you know why I've called you to my office? Asked Tsunade sternly. If it's about my recent attempts to flee the village, you must understand, Hokage-sama, some days I just can't take it anymore. Guy, he's just so suffocating at times, cried Zabuza, causing Tsunade to let out a little chuckle. Don't worry, I'm not mad at you for that. In fact, I have a solution to your little guy problem, chuckled Tsunade. It's a rather important assignment that will take up a good amount of your time, so Guy can't challenge you to any more of his ridiculous rivalry challenges. You three can come in. Zabuza turned to see Hozuki Sugetsu, Isaribi, and Uzumaki Karen step through the door, all wearing a Konoha headband somewhere on their person. Sugetsu had on a tight-fitting purple vest and black pants. He also had what appeared to be a pair of scimitars strapped to his back, giving the swordsman in training some form of blade with which he could satisfy his L for hacking and S. However, it was clearly obvious that his eyes were locked on the sword Zabuza wielded, and he wouldn't be truly satisfied with his weapons until one of the 7 swords was strapped to his back. Karen had on a light purple jacket that flared open just above her navel and a pair of black shorts. She also had standard black sandals with high legging that reached up to mid-thigh. Along with this, she had sewn a white Uzumaki crest, similar to the one Naruto had, on the sleeve of her jacket, with her Konoha headband tied around her other arm. Despite her lack of experience with it, Karen also wielded the sword she found in her grandmother's locker back in a zoo. Lastly, Isaribi wore what appeared to be a tight black dive-out wetsuit. While it didn't look like standard shinobi attire, it was ideal particularly for her due to her kaima form and abilities in the water. As for weapons, she just had the standard kunai pouch on her leg. Tsunade-sama, is this? Asked Zabuza, slightly afraid to find out the answer. Meet your new genin team. Chirped Tsunade. You can't be serious, Hokage-sama, argued Zabuza. Oh, I most certainly am, said Tsunade. I've put much thought into it and I concluded you'd be the best guide for these 3. First, you're the strongest water user within the village and all the shinobi here have water-natured chakra. Second, Sugetsu already has some kenjutsu training, while Karen definitely has shown an interest if what Naruto's saying is anything to go by, and Isaribi's kaima form gives her Finn sword-like characteristics. Lastly, as a jonin of Konohagakure no Sato, it is your duty to guide the genin so that they can mature into splendid shinobi. Besides, you'll be so busy training these guys that you won't have time for Guy's silly antics. I witnessed your little sparring session with Naruto the other day and how you were explaining kenjutsu to Karen and Sugetsu. You'll make a fine sensei. Zabuza-sensei, grinned Sugetsu with a sharky grin. What? Why do I have to be on a team with him? Shouted Karen as she pointed towards Sugetsu. Geez, what's got your panties in a bundle? Grumbled Sugetsu. 1. You're creepy, and 2. Your chakra's revolting. I can barely stand next to you without vomiting, said a flustered Karen. Can't I at least be on someone's team who has more pleasant chakra like Sasuke-kun's? TSK. I still don't get what's so great about that guy, shrugged Sugetsu. What's she talking about? Revolting and pleasant chakra? Zabuza asked Tsunade. Karen seems to have a unique sensory ability that's far more advanced than almost anything I've seen, said Tsunade. I see. The Uzumaki girl and Isaribi seem interesting, but do I really have to take him? Groaned Zabuza. I've caught him trying to steal my sword at least half a dozen times in the past few weeks. It's either this or I give you 3 genin fresh out of the academy, said Tsunade. Zabuza sighed. Very well, I'll take him on as my students and whip them into shape. The ex-Kiri ninja sent a particularly sadistic glare towards Sugetsu. That's wonderful, smiled Tsunade. Now, the next Chunin exams are to be held in Konoha 4 months from now. The final decision will be up to you, but I'd like you to try and have them ready for the upcoming exams. Don't worry, after I'm through with them, the Chunin exams will be the least of their worries, chuckled Zabuza sadistically. Great. Now, I just so happen to have your first mission, said Tsunade as she handed Zabuza a scroll. Could you please go fetch Portora for Madame Shijimi? The sealing of the Rokubi is complete, announced the ripple-eyed leader of Akatsuki as the third eye on the Gedo Mizo statue opened. With only 6 of us, that sure took a lot longer, said Deidara. All that time that could have been better spent on my art, wasted. If I'm hearing right, you're starting to sound a little like Sasori, commented Kisame. What can I say, I miss my man Sasori, replied Deidara. Though, I can't believe I'm saying it, but I also miss Itachi. That punk will pay for taking Itachi away before he could experience my true art. Zetsu, what do you have to report on the other targets? Asked the Akatsuki leader. The cages have called a summit in the Land of Iron. All of the Jinchuriki are to be present as well, commented the Akatsuki spymaster. Ooh, it's like a Jinchuriki party. Cheered Toby. Can we go, senpai? Can we? Shut it, Toby. Keep that up and I might just have to assign you a cause of death. Retorted Deidara. Mayor, so you're just going to bomb me to death, shrugged Toby, only causing Deidara's temper to soar as a massive explosion shook the Akatsuki base where the two were located at. Our actions have made the nations aware of us, commented Zetsu. Taking on the 5 cage and the Jinchuriki would be S. We have already suffered enough losses with Sasori, Hiden, Kakazu, and Itachi. We can't afford any more losses, commented leader. However, the hatred of the shinobi world will prevent them from coming together entirely to oppose us. And while they continue to squabble amongst themselves, opportunities to capture the Biju will present themselves. You sound so confident in that, Leader Sama, commented Kisame. The pain the villagers know cannot be overcome, replied the leader. I sense an opportunity will present itself soon because of this. Ooh, let me, screamed Toby as he waved his hand around like a 5th grader. Somehow, the newest Akatsuki member didn't have a scorch mark on him from Deidara's latest artistic outburst. Are you sure Toby's up to the job? Catching a Biju is tough work, commented White Zetsu. Toby has to start somewhere. Besides, Toby is a good boy, replied Black Zetsu. Konoha gates, 5 days before the summit. Gathered at the gates were Tsunade, and her escorts Kakashi and Yamato, as well as Konoha's 2 Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto and Fu. Also gathered were a number of shinobi, genin rank through jonin rank, there to see their Hokage off. The news of Akage's summit was huge, and add in the fact that just weeks ago, the Raikage was in Konoha, well, there was something going on. There were those who knew what the summit was about and were keeping quiet for the time. There were the younger, less experienced shinobi who were trying to figure out what exactly was going on. And then there were the more experienced shinobi that knew this was something to be kept secret until the time came for it to be divulged. It's going to be 5 days of hard traveling to get to the Land of Iron, said Tsunade. Shikaku, I'm leaving the village in your hands until we return. Let's get a move on it. The Hokage's 4 companions nodded before the 5 of them disappeared into the forest at high speed. As was common when something such as a Kage's summit occurred, the missions taken by Konoha were minimal and only those critical to the nation's and village's security were taken. Everyone else was added to extra guard teams. In a sense, this made it easier for the interim leader to function without doing anything that desperately required the Hokage's input and decision. The evening before summit, the team from Konoha arrived at the gates to Sangaku, the capital city of the Land of Iron. Greeting him at the gate was none other than the military leader of the Land of Iron, the Shogun Mifune. Hokage-sama, we've been waiting for you. I am Mifune, and I am the leader of the Land of Iron, announced the samurai. However, you already knew that. It's good to see you again, old friend, greeted Suanad as she offered Mifune a friendly hand. It certainly is, returned Mifune. Kazekage Dono, Reikage Dono, and Mizukage Dono have already arrived. We are just waiting on Tsuchikage Dono. My grandson, Hiro will show you to your quarters where you may rest until tomorrow's summit. From behind Mifune, a familiar man stepped out, clad in full samurai armor. To Naruto, his distant cousin looked exactly as he remembered, only slightly older and with a more experienced face on his shoulders. The only significant difference Naruto could detect was Hiro had his longer hair tied in a top-knot style, rather than the ponytail he remembered. It's a pleasure to be of service, Hokage-sama, bowed Hiro. My name's Uzumaki Hiro and I'll escort you to your accommodations. Despite knowing that this man did in fact bear Uzumaki be, she still found herself pleasantly surprised by the name. Even Naruto found himself surprised by Hiro. Of course, Hiro's current duties required him to professional, rather than stubborn and brash cousin he knew. It's good to see you again, Uzumaki Naruto, greeted Mifune as the Hokage and her companions stepped into the city. It's good to be back, sensei, replied Naruto. Yamato was surprised by the way Naruto addressed the man greeting them. While Tsunade and Kakashi knew Naruto had studied under this man, the wood user had not been briefed on that. As Mifune closed the gates behind him, Hiro escorted the Konoha contingent towards their living arrangements before giving them some time to settle in. Shortly after settling in, a knock came on the door to everyone's attention. You up for ramen, cousin? Asked Hiro from the other side of the door. Naruto figured that Hiro must have been relieved from duty for the night and he wouldn't mind catching up with his cousin over a hot bowl of ramen. You know it, Tobayo! Exclaimed Naruto. First, can we get a few friends? Fu. Coming. Cheered the green-haired Jinchuriki. The local ramen bar was making AK that night. Alone, both Naruto and Hiro could eat most of the bar out of its food. Now, add 4 others who possessed an abnormally strong liking for the food and even the ramen bar couldn't keep up. While their efforts paled in comparison to the 2 Uzumakis, Gaara, Yugito, Fu, and KB still managed to pile a few bowls, all while Kurama kept muttering something about his father and ramen addicts. Walking back through the town, a light snow fell upon the Land of Iron, despite it being late August. The northern location accompanied by the allude of the Land of Iron made it so it snowed most of the year, with maybe a few months of warmer weather in June, July, and early August. Running ahead of Naruto was his fellow green-haired Jinchuriki, twirling in the streets at the sight of a white blanket falling upon the town. He couldn't help but chuckle at the girl's antics. That's right, Konoha's warmer than here. We get some snow, but it doesn't last very long, mused Naruto. Being much further south than the Land of Iron, Konoha was in a much warmer climate and while snowfalls occurred during the middle of winter, they wouldn't last very long. Even he couldn't resist the urge to pick up a pile of snow, roll it into a ball and throw it at Fu. However, the energetic Jinchuriki somehow managed to catch it and send it sailing right back towards Naruto, knocking him square in the face. You're going to have to do better than that, cheered Fu as she taunted Naruto. It warmed him up a little seeing the green-haired girl acting like this as he remembered how she was during the Kumo Chunin exams, depressed, lost, and just looking for someone to call a friend. However, after taking her in, it wasn't long before almost everyone in Konoha realized how much energy she had if she was happy. The grin disappeared off Fu's face as dozens of Naruto popped into existence, all armed with snowballs. Quickly Fu took to the skies in an attempt to dodge the flurry of snowballs, but she unable to dodge them all as a few nicked her wings, causing her to crash into a nearby snowbank. Fu could only help but laugh at Naruto helped pull her out of the snowbank. I remember in Taki, going up to the top layers of the hero's tree. It was like there was a whole other world just a few 100 feet above us, said Fu. Naruto sent her a questioning look. The tree was so large that it covered our entire village. It was so thick that the snow couldn't get through the first few layers. The snow's one of the very few things I miss about Taki. A slight silence between the two was broken when Naruto caught a glimpse of the Mizukage, if the signature quadrilateral hat on his back was anything to go by. To him, the Mizukage looked like a boy, even younger than him, with grayish-brown hair, pink eyes, and a scar below his left eye. However, that wasn't what caught Naruto's attention. Looking over at Fu, he could tell she sensed it too. San, I see. The Mizukage is a Jinchuriki as well, replied Naruto to his demon companion. Out of the corner of his eye, Fu sent him a nod, indicating she was aware as well. With all the Jinchuriki in one place, Naruto couldn't help but wonder if everyone being here was a good thing or not. Orochimaru-sama, how do you feel? Excellent, Kabuto, said the snake Sannin. I must say, you've surely outdone yourself with this new vessel. I aim to please. Also, I've heard an interesting bit of news going around, said Kabuto. Yes, Sasuke-kun Kei Itachi-kun, hissed Orochimaru. Now that Sasuke's main driving factor was out of the picture, any hope the snake Sannin had at manipulating Sasuke through the hatred of his brother was gone. He'd have to resort to other means at convincing Sasuke to join him, willingly or not. Sir, perhaps it is time we shift focus back towards Sasuke, proposed Kabuto. No, there's a more urgent matter that needs attended to, stated Orochimaru. Little Anko-chan, huh? Realized Kabuto. Yes, how did she remove the cursed seal? I simply must know, scowled Orochimaru. Do we have any spies in Konoha? I believe there are a few still, Orochimaru-sama. Although they aren't in any significant position, said Kabuto. Still, send orders to them. I want to know Anko's every move, ordered Orochimaru. I need to find how she removed the mark, and I intend to pry the answer out of her. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.